Thank you for coming, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
I want to introduce you as Cole Sager, man of God,
Hmm.
husband,
Hmm.
father, fitness entrepreneur, fitness influencer, unfortunately, sorry. And I hate that word.
Truth.
I hate that word. And then also something to do, I don't know your title, but CompTrain taking over.
Yep.
What'd I miss?
Yeah. No, honestly, thank you.
Yeah.
The order was spot on.
Proper?
Like, yeah, proper, right? Like, especially starting with God, husband, father, like the things that matter, man. It's like, call me whatever you want, identify me as whatever you want, but when those three things are in the right order in the right place, like life's good. So yeah,
Well,
so I
I think
appreciate
it's
that.
easy for someone to speak. Cole Sager, 10 times CrossFit
Right.
Games athlete, which is great, but I know that's not your primary identity, just knowing you.
Totally.
Did get to watch you compete in person last year. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh no,
Alicia
no,
and I
did
snuck
you?
down.
No kidding. Oh, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
We were rooting for you.
Yeah, thanks.
You did well. Interesting circumstances.
I was gonna say thanks and sorry.
Yeah.
That was the experience that you guys came upon. Hey, it was a tragedy. Is what it is, and hopefully the community at large, all of us can make the best of it moving forward. But
Definitely. I liked watching you compete on the track and field. That was my favorite event to watch as a spectator. Like,
fun one, really fun.
was that fun for you guys?
Dude, it felt so good. Is there something different about like stadium lights?
High school stadium lights at night.
Like that wasn't a high school stadium. It
was-
was, but it
Texas.
wasn't. Yeah, it was a Texas high school stadium. So, really cool atmosphere. I really enjoyed that event, and I think it was a long time coming of getting like the athletes on the track again and in that environment, and it just creates for cool vibes.
You guys ran. Was it 2 miles or 1 mile?
That was a 1 mile.
Yeah, 1 mile all out.
Yeah.
With minimal rest, right into a sprint. So kind of two ends of the spectrum. Did you know how you were going to do on the run? Like, dude can run.
Yeah.
Were you like thinking first place, or were you thinking top 10? Like,
I was thinking top 10.
Yep.
I think I came in around 15th. And when you get into a games weekend, and for those that, if we didn't touch base on this in the introduction, I've been competing as a professional athlete in CrossFit for the last 12 years ish or so. So that's how we got into this really quickly. But yeah, whenever you're competing in a weekend at the CrossFit Games, you know how you could perform, but how you actually perform is never probably what would ideally happen on paper, right? And so I had goals for a specific mile time, which, knowing my cohorts and where that should line up, would be a top 10. Then you get into it and, how have you been hydrating? How have you been fueling? How have you been sleeping? What muscles are overworked that you didn't expect to be overworked? And how, a lot of that comes into play, and it's actually really interesting if you want to get into like a little bit of like the physiology and anatomy behind it. It's like, we could have done an event that is really good for another athlete. And so it didn't hurt. It didn't beat them up as much as it did me. And so then when they go to run their mile, it's like they're feeling a little bit more fresh than I did, right? So there's so much that goes into it, and I think I pulled like a 5:12, 5:15-ish
good
mile.
Lord.
Which I'm satisfied with. Like,
Is that a PR?
No. 5:08 is my like PR that I go off of, but like I really think that if a little bit of training, I was close to being at that 5-minute mark. If it was put together right, but you got to run right. You got to run a good race.
You do. I remember 2 highlights from that. One, I was impressed with the guy who won the mile. I didn't know he was good at running.
Yeah.
I haven't been following the sport.
I didn't know he was that good.
I mean, he got like,
was
was it sub 5? It was 4.
Sub 5. It was 450 something.
Incredible. His name's Ricky Gerard out of Australia or something. And then the other one I watched was this girl, you might know her name, but she sprinted lap 3 thinking it was lap 4. Alex? No. No, not Kazan, but she's from Think Tank.
Magala?
Maybe. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Anyway, yeah.
She literally sprinted the third lap and stopped at the finish line, and everyone's like, "You got one more."
No.
So she like emptied the tank. I think she still like survived and didn't like get dead last, but like, dude, I was impressed. Like, she really kicked on the third lap, thinking she was done. But to watch you guys do, like, I've always watched from afar, like the CrossFit game stuff, and for you being a former D1 football player, anytime there was like not typical CrossFit, bringing in the athleticism, that's where you really would shine. Like anything sprinting, change of direction. Do you feel like there's been enough of that variety mixed in the games throughout the last 10 years?
Absolutely not.
That's what I thought.
Actually, over the last, I would say from 2018 to now is really when I felt like that like fell off in a big way. And I feel like the test has become less well-rounded because of it. You know, and we kind of, you know, it started to bias a little bit more towards power output and powerful in the sense of like we're lifting heavier loads, the workouts were predictable. It had gotten to the point where a workout would be announced and I probably could have, you know, within a margin of error of one or two athletes told you who the top 10 would be. And I mean, I've done my homework. I've been in the sport. I am a student of the game of whatever I'm doing. It's like I obsess into what I'm doing. And so it was kind of frustrating. And if you're the athlete in the space still competing, you can't really you can't really address that because it's not going to be heard because it's like, well, yeah, you're an athlete, you know, you're biased towards what you want to see and this, that, and the other. But it was an unfortunate thing to see kind of start to take shape in the test at the CrossFit Games. Because like, hey, like this is getting predictable in the sense of like you program something and I can tell you who the top if you had you laid out all the events that we did at the games this year ahead of time, for the most part, I could have told you who was going to be in the top 5 to 10 athletes. Again, margin of error, 2-3 athletes or whatever, but it really give you a good understanding of like, you can just kind of calculate that and figure that out. And so the well-roundedness, bringing in the athleticism, I always love that. Obviously I'm biased towards it because it was just like, I love seeing that. But I also love seeing people do athletic things. It's fun. It's cool. You know,
there was the games we got to participate in, and it was like 13. So you probably were there competing. I can't remember.
14 was my first game.
Okay, so 13, there was this burden run thing.
Oh yeah, the burden run.
I thought that was such a cool event because these guys were carrying logs essentially a long distance really fast, and I know there was other things involved.
Flipping the pig for the first time. The green one, the green pig.
Yeah, the OG. That was one of my favorite. I also liked. I just liked anything sprinty on the soccer field that was like kind of medley or relay type vibe.
There's an example of that. One of the, I think it would have been in 2015. There was what did they call it? I think they called it obstacle course 1 and 2. And essentially what it was a sprint around the little dummies, you know, the donkey dummies or whatever they call them. A sprint around those, so you zigzag through those, sprint down the field, and then you had to hurdle over or get over, is a better, more accurate term, but get over 3 obstacles. So that's how they called it. That's why they called it the obstacle course 1 and 2. It was so fun. In the back when we were warming up for this, they gave us an opportunity because there was a penalty if you knocked one of the obstacles over. And I mean, these were only like maybe 8 inches wide. And so if you clipped it, they were going over. Like they were very easy to knock down. And we were in the back, in the track in the back, warming up, and they're allowing us to go over those just to get a sense of it. So that when we actually get on the floor, we don't look foolish when we're out there. And I was probably like, 10th in line or something like that. And we're going through it and people were sprinting up to it, stopping, jumping over it. Sprinting up to it, stopping, jumping over it. And then I just kind of like jog up to it. Well, I was a 110-meter hurdler in high school. And so I hurdle over it. And people are like, oh, okay, like, you didn't tell us this guy was in the group, And so it's really cool because then you see that. And when you go back and watch the event, you see this race between Dan Bailey and I.
Yep. Who's also a former collegiate.
He was a collegiate athlete as well.
Right.
He was a 100-meter sprinter.
Okay.
And so you see him, the first way that we needed to go down was we had to go through the zigzag dummies, sprint down the field, and then get over the obstacles. And he takes off. And he's so fast that he gets, 20 meters ahead of everybody in the field. But then once the hurdles come up, he doesn't know how to hurdle, so he's jumping over them. And so you see me in the background slowly close the gap, and we finish kind of neck and neck, right? And then the opposite goes around. Then we had to come back the other way. So that was then part 2 was flipping back and going over the 3 obstacles first. And I'm way ahead of him over the obstacles. But then you just watch him just turn on the jets and just fly the rest of the way. And it's just like, that's athleticism. Like that's getting to see those physical feats is just it's really cool. And then it makes for fun events.
Yeah, I guess one thing about CrossFit is it's very linear on paper. Like most of your workouts, not a lot of change of direction, deceleration, accel, which is fine. It obviously makes you really fit. And we'll get into maybe some of the methodology and where you're at in your career.
Sure.
But I'm going to stay with the CrossFit Games. What was your best performance? What year was that where you were like, maybe your best performance on paper, and maybe a year where your best performance, if you were, to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm the most proud of that year. Maybe they're the same year, maybe they're different.
Yeah. I would say that I have 2 answers that, I'm going to answer this in 2 ways. Best performance year was in 2016. I took 5th. That was my highest placement throughout my games career. And there was something that was really unique about that year. And it was that I ran the full spectrum of the leaderboard. And what I mean by that is...
I remember this.
Is after day 1, or it would have been, I think it was after day 1, I was in dead last.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good way to start it off.
That's a great way to start. So I think I took a 27th in the first event and then took 40th, which is last place. There was 40 athletes in event 2. And so something that's really cool going into event 3, they line us up. We go out and take the field. I was in the first heat, which means that you're in the, the bottom 31 to 40 athletes. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but I was in lane 10, which means that you're in last place. Like it's very easy to figure out what place you're in if you've been doing it long enough. Like what lane are you in and what heat are you in? You know what place you're in. And I just wasn't paying attention. I was just like, hey, I just need to go take care of business on the next event. Like whatever. Oh, my heat's up. Okay, cool. Go do the thing. I did well on that event. And something I'm really proud of that year is I didn't care where my placement was at. I didn't care what the leaderboard was saying. All I cared about is how I was going to attack the next event. What am I going to do? How do I bring out the best in me for this next event? How do I fuel for it? How do I sleep for it? How do I rest for it and recover and go out and execute on it? And throughout the weekend, just slowly climbed up from 40th, and then going into the final event, I was somewhere in like maybe 10th place or something like that going into the final. And it was a 2-part final, finished that in 5th place. And so just kind of a cool run of the full spectrum of the leaderboard that I thought was really unique and proud of the mentality of just, hey, show up and make the best of what you have in front of you right now kind of idea. So, that would probably be one of my proudest years. And then seasons, I think when you look at seasons at large, 2019 was probably my favorite preparation season. I just felt like I prepared the best. I was the most fit. I was the most well-rounded. Didn't place my highest because they had some cuts that year. And going into the cut line, I missed it by a point or 2 or something like that. And, when you look back at the weekend at large, like there's a lot of places that it's like, hey, you just missed an execution here, and that would have drastically changed and given me the last 5 events of the weekend to climb the leaderboard and whatnot. But I took 11th that year because they cut down to 10 after Saturday or whatever the
that
day
sucks. Was. Okay. I do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 10 consecutive CrossFit Games appearances, how many of them?
11.
11?
11, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
last
year was 11.
Is that the record?
Yeah. Me and BK, me and Bjorn Carl Goodmanson share that record.
Damn.
At 11
Is he going
straight.
again this year?
I mean, it looks like it just based off the leaderboard, but I don't know.
Oh, he signed up for the Open?
Yeah, he signed up for the Open. So I don't know what his intent is. I haven't really asked and reached out recently.
Okay.
But
well, going back to this, sorry about that. 11 consecutive, insane. How many of those were you like the guy who squeezed in at the semifinal to get it? That's a fair question.
That's such a good question. That's such a fair one.
It's not like once.
No, it's 2015, 2016. It would have been, and then again.
It would be semifinals last year.
It was semifinals last year.
Because we watched that.
So I think it was 4, if I remember correctly. There was like one in like 21 or 22.
There's 4 dudes out there that hate you. They're going to the games. They got one event to go, and then there's stupid thrusters involved.
Yep.
And y'all know cold thrusters.
Rope climbs.
Not cool. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. No,
incredible.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate. I've had a very fun career. It's been an absolute blast. Taught me a lot. Shaped me a lot. And I think when I look back on the reason why I went through it, which is very much that, it's like, how can this shape me as a human being, and what can this pull out of me? I think I can look back on it and say like, hey, that was successful. That was good, regardless of placements and things like that. There's a lot of other things to look at there that you could assess, but I think the thing that I was looking for, that I was searching for, came out of it, and that's been cool.
We'll back up from CrossFit because I want to get into football. I love football. I want to say it was Brooke Springer. She used to be a coach for the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I think she mentioned she had a connection with you, and it might have been like through family or something, some sort of relationship. She's like, my cousin or something's coming to town. Are you guys cousins or?
There's just really close friends that we were all connected with.
Somehow she was connected. She was like, yeah, this dude's coming over. He's probably going to go to the CrossFit games. So you hadn't been to the games yet. And we were at our old location.
In Sprague.
Yeah. And she was like, he's going to come work out. I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. Let's see this CrossFit games guy, and then we saw you work out and we're like, oh, copy that. So that was my first time seeing you. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is a games athlete, like pretty obvious and pretty new to the scene because I hadn't seen a lot of football guys come through yet. A few had, but it was nice to see like a collegiate football player step through and continue their competitive journey through CrossFit. And a lot of D1 athletes don't get to find something to compete at for another 11, 12 years, which is cool. But my point being, what position did you play at the University of Washington? And was Coach Peterson your coach?
No, Peterson, Sarkisian.
Sarkisian.
Yeah,
okay.
I was his first 4 years of his, I think, 6-year tenure or whatever it was.
Oh, cool. So it's nice to start out with the same coach and end with the same coach your career at University of Washington. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying it was nice. I'm saying that I did. I would have much rather.
Fair.
So my other school that I was looking at was actually Boise State for Coach Peterson. Like he would have been the reason why I went to Boise State was him. So like when he took the job, I was like, come on, I'm just.
Are you serious?
6 years too early.
Yeah. So I lived in Boise when they won everything.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I was working in Boise at a Gold's Gym, going to every game. And that's how I knew Peterson. I was like, this guy's a phenomenal coach. And then I knew he was at University of Washington, but I didn't know that you had just missed him. So how was your 4 years of college ball?
Oh, it was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Conflicted at, like, I felt like I had one of the, how do I navigate this gracefully? Worst coaching experiences that you could have.
But you didn't quit.
Yeah, absolutely not. So this is a philosophy of mine that I personally stand at. And like when I'm asked, like, should an athlete pursue Division I football, or should they maybe take a small scholarship at a D2 or go junior, JUCO for a bit or something like that. I was a guy who pursued Division I. I was a preferred walk-on, so I was invited. Come walk on. If you earn your keep, you can have a scholarship. That kind of thing. End up earning my scholarship, so on and so forth. that is the route that I think the majority of human beings should take, or kids should take, because of the challenge that it forces you to go through and the shaping of you as a person that it requires of, that you have to go through, that demands of you, as opposed to like, hey, go be, a big fish in a small pond. It doesn't really require much of you. It doesn't require much change. There's not much challenge there per se. And now, if you want to enjoy the experience, the absolute most and to the best, like, sure, I'm probably going to a smaller place and getting playing time, and it's going to still be a challenge. Like, there's a lot of benefits there, but man, like the challenge of just being in that environment, it was cutthroat. It was business. My senior year, we were partway through the year. Like we had gone through training camp already, and they had a recruit that they wanted. Well, I was on a year-to-year basis.
Really?
So as a preferred walk-on, because you don't sign a contract like a letter of intent that you would if you were a recruited.
I gotcha.
Athlete coming out of high school. And so I'm on a year-to-year basis. Well, there was a recruit that they wanted to bring in, and so they just called me into the office and said, "Hey, we're going to give your scholarship to somebody else because that's business and that's how things are done. And you're the one that we can cut. We can't cut these guys. So sorry. All right, see you practice."
Welcome to the real world, Cole.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What position were you?
I was a running back for the first 3 years. Moved to fullback my senior year. Put on 35.
I was going to say, wait a second. Wait. So what did you weigh senior year to be a fullback?
Yeah, I was 235 pounds.
Gross.
Yeah, I had to put that on in 5 months. It was a disgusting process, man, of just eating everything, to the point where like this is actually a fascinating transition, because then right at the end of my senior year, I started doing CrossFit. And I went through this phase trying to gain this weight where it was literally move as little as possible throughout the day, because I couldn't put the weight on no matter how much I ate. I just was moving too much. I was still doing double days. I was a gym rat. It wasn't by accident that I landed up in a CrossFit type training environment, right? So I'm here, and like just sitting as much as I possibly could, not moving my body, did no extra running than what was required of me in training and whatnot. And put on 35 pounds. And that was I felt disgusting. I felt sick all the time. Yeah.
So when you're a senior and you're going to be a fullback, they cut your scholarship. Does that mean you got to pay tuition?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You got to figure that out one.
And you were like, it didn't deter you. You were like, you stayed, I'm going to stick with the team and do it. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think about quitting?
No. Wow. No, absolutely not. So at that point, it was still my plan to find that is what it is. I'm going to continue to pursue football. And that was my, even after college, I knew that, hey, I was a special teams player. Like that was my role. I started on all the special teams throughout my 4 years. Started on even the special teams in my freshman year, and that's when I earned my scholarship. And, that was really where I got my playing time. And I recognized that, like, hey, you don't have the stats, you don't have whatever you need. So train really hard, make sure that you're physically capable, and go play the game, go grind, go do what you need to do, and make the connections that you need to make and prove yourself.
Yep.
And, go have an NFL career. It may not look like what everybody pictures when they picture an NFL career. Maybe it's starting on a practice squad for the first 3 years. You're making $75K a year. You can live off that. You can do your things, whatever, and maybe you make the roster. Well, like that. It was that process, and that's what I wanted to go down. That's what I wanted to pursue. And it wasn't until the very end, somewhere in like late November, early December, that I was convinced by my best friend. Said, "Hey, you're going to go do CrossFit." Well,
who's your best friend?
That was Cody Denham.
Why do I know that person? Do I know Cody?
You did know Cody. He was a coach at Duratus while back. Passed away from brain cancer a couple years ago.
No kidding.
Yeah. He had glioblastoma.
I didn't know he passed away.
Yeah. We lost him a couple years ago at 2021.
That was a good one. He was a good human.
He was a really good human. Yeah.
Rest in peace, man. Okay, yeah. I was like, I know that name. So how did he convince you? Let's live his spirit up. Like, how did he get in your ear about this? Because it's November. You guys are just wrapping up the season.
Yeah.
No bowl games that year?
We had a bowl game.
You had a bowl game? So you're not done.
We were the Vegas bowl. Not done. We had the Vegas bowl. You know, at that point they had kind of picked and chosen their roster, and typically when you're a senior and you're not on scholarship, so meaning they're not actively investing in you, what they typically do on the later 3 games of the year is they start bringing in the new crop. And they start, cultivating that new crop. And so, I saw that all 4 years, the same thing happened. So I knew exactly what was going to start taking place. And it's part of the game strategy, right? And so I started to get less playing time on the special teams and, each of those little rosters when they pull up at the beginning of the week. It's like, okay, well, my name's not up there. And they put the freshman in there. Well, I know why you're cultivating him. You're getting him ready for the next season, getting some experience under his belt, maybe burning a red shirt because they don't want to continue to pay that athlete. There's so much strategy behind the game. It's a huge business, right? And so I was aware of that. And so I really was like, okay, well, then where my focus needs to go is to how can I start taking this extra time that I have where I don't need to be spending as much time in extra film time. How can I, and classes were coming to a close because we're on a quarterly basis. So like classes are kind of like taken up. Like how can I start maximizing my time outside of practice and whatnot? I was like, okay, well, I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to start training and preparing for our pro day, which was coming up in March. So that was the thought and the plan. And Cody being my best friend, he was in the Army at the time. He was in the military at the time. And he came home and he was like, hey man, like let's go out. I'm gonna come down and we're gonna have lunch together. And so we went out to Chipotle and he was like, all right, I'm gonna pitch something to you. I have your next phase of life. You're gonna give up on this dream of playing football and you're gonna go to the CrossFit Games. And I laughed him down so hard.
What year is this?
This would be 2012.
Okay.
This would be 2012. Yeah, 2012. I laughed him down so hard. Like, you're a fool. Absolutely not. CrossFit is comical at best. They do push-ups and pull-ups with bands and swinging around on things like
flailing on pull-up bars.
Yeah, right. And I was just like, look, and actually, like, I actually genuinely did not know really anything about CrossFit at the time. This is more like things that I just heard and had just, banked in my mind and regurgitated. I didn't know it for myself. And I was like, look, I'm a football player. Like I bench, I squat, I'm rough and tough. I'm good. Thanks, man. And he was like, hey man, stop. Like, and he would call me as he's like, stop being an arrogant fool kind of thing. And he was like, I'm going to send you a video and watch this video and then let's have another conversation. I was like, all right, cool. He sends me a video and it's not of anybody working out. It's not of anybody at the CrossFit Games. It's a video of Rich Froning and Dan Bailey going through an interview talking about how they want to like positively impact the community and the good they want to do in the world.
Well played.
And I was like,
well played.
Like, come on, man.
Gotcha.
And it was because our whole back end of high school throughout college, whenever we would get together, we were talking about like, hey, like, how can we influence the world? How can we inspire a little bit more faith? How can we, be positive and do good and help people? And these are the conversations that he and I would be having off to the side. And how are we going to do that? And so his mind was always kind of like the idea guy, like, well, you could do this, and so it was like, what if you went to the CrossFit Games and you built a platform that way, and like we could start impacting people's lives in a really good way that way, like and that was the conversation we had. And then he sent me footage of the CrossFit Games,
sure,
and I was like, oh, that's dope. That's really cool.
Gotcha.
Let's do it.
Did you do your pro day?
I did not, no. So I made the decision. I was training for pro day. Went through most of the sign up process. I mean, I did the whole like take you back. They measure every facet of your body from fingertip to wrist, you know, your femur, tibia length, all of these things, because they're putting it into an equation of like, okay, like what is your anatomical makeup and is this good for the sport and, you know, whatever. Like there's so many things. So, you know, went through all of that testing and whatnot, but did not actually do the actual pro day, run your 40, do the shuttles, things like that. Instead, he sent me the video. We had one more conversation. I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the CrossFit Games. Then I went and did Grace.
Just right then and there.
Yeah, like the next day. Well, actually, no, what it was is we decided, yes, this is what it was. We decided, yes, we get back from our bowl game, which was the Vegas Bowl that year. We get off the bus at like 8 p.m. or something like that, and I go over to the IMA, the Intramural Athletic Center, and I load up Grace, and I do Grace that night. As soon as I got off, I was like, football's done. Let's go. Like,
Okay, I'm going to give folks some context. You're a fullback, D1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a football play lasts seconds, and it's about collisions.
Mm-hmm.
Your strength coach probably has you hang power cleaning at best. You're definitely not doing lightweight, ground to overhead, clean and jerks, especially not 135 for 30 reps as fast as possible. You probably could hang power clean almost 400 pounds. So what's 135, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so how'd it go?
So I actually didn't know the difference between kilos and pounds. So I grabbed the plates that looked like 45s.
55s?
Yeah. You know,
so you did a 155 heavy Grace to start
heavy Grace and 333.
Oh, so you had capacity. You had a genetic, like obviously not undermining all your hard work and being an athlete, but like there's a genetic disposition to be able to breathe fire.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And so when I saw the 333, when I stopped the clock, I saw 333. I was like, okay, we can work with that. And I wasn't like stoked on it,
right?
But I was like, we can work with this. It's going to take some training. Mind you, I just got done playing collegiate football, working with some of the best strength coaches in the country. Like I experienced hard training and quality training, right? So like my mindset is not this like, oh, like I don't have it. It's like you make some adjustments, you work for it, you make those and you just make it happen. It's like you can train for this. You can make this happen kind of thing. And so, and then somebody who was nearby that I was talking with, they're like, well, that's 155 pounds. I was like, okay, all right.
That's got to make you feel better.
It made me feel so much better.
Yeah, that's incredible. So at what point did you meet your wife? Was it in college? Because she was a collegiate softball player?
Yeah. She was going to school in Ogden, Utah.
So how do you meet a girl in Ogden, Utah, bud?
You have a roommate that just has this feeling and he doesn't give up on it for 3 years. That's exactly what happened.
3 years.
For 3 years, my roommate, my freshman year, I was going through like, talk about girl drama. Like I just had it, like the string of girl drama, in you know, leaving high school, getting into college. And he was just like, dude, I know this girl. I went to school with her. They both went to CV here in town.
Jenesy went to CV?
Yeah, she went to CV.
What year did she graduate?
That would have been 2009.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And so he was just like, hey, look, like she's a goody goody, you're a goody goody, like you'll be goody goodies together. You guys can, you know, make little nice little babies and whatnot. And this is like starting my freshman year with him. And I'm like, dude, just stop. Like leave me alone. And he just kept dripping and dripping and dripping. He was doing the same thing to her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and there was actually our freshman year when he had sent her like pictures of me and my Facebook, and she was like, cool, awesome, looks like a great guy, tell him I'm gonna marry him. Like she said that. And like sure enough, like, you know, fast forward 5 years and we're married and whatnot. But he did not give up on this at all.
He's a stud. When did you guys actually meet face to face? Was there sparks immediately, or like I got to hear about the first time you laid eyes on this thing?
So I'm at a softball game of another friend, the women's softball, watching the game. David calls me and he's like, dude, Jenesy is in town. If you do not get up to the quad right now, I will castrate you in your sleep tonight. Like literally, he was just was that guy. And when he said that, I actually kind of like, he would actually probably do something to me. Okay. So like, I was actually kind of concerned when he had that tone.
Yep.
He was a great roommate. But so I pop up, I see them. It's a whole group of friends. Like the whole CV clan came together like, oh, like Jenesy in town. And every CV person at UW seemed to like come to the quad at that time. And I show up and like, there she is. And I mean, obviously I'd seen pictures of her and was like, it was awesome to see her in person. The thing that was really cool is like, she had this like super humble countenance that you can't see in photos and whatnot. You have to feel on somebody. And I was like, wow, like you are a meek human being, like modest, humble, like good-hearted human. And that was
your first impression.
That was my first impression. And I was like, this is like, you are a refreshing person to be around. And I would love to just sit and have good conversation with you. I'd love to talk. But we were, it was a college setting. Okay, let's all go out to dinner and we talk and whatnot. And then we bounce over to this next thing. And we go to this park where we have to walk through this grass field. And it was just muddy. And she was only wearing flip-flops. I was like, well, let me just give you a piggyback. Yep. I'm the biggest human being of the friend group. So it would make sense that if somebody's going to, well, everybody took that as like, oh yeah, like they're hitting it. They hit it off. I was like, no, like, it's like, just do the nice thing. I'm the biggest human being. I'll carry you across the field. No problem. And like during that time, awesome, like cool connection. She's a nice gal. You're now flying 800 miles back to school. Like it was really cool to meet you. I'll see you later. And let's just exchange phone numbers and we'll text and communicate and talk and whatnot. And, we do that for a week and just like, reminisce on how nice of a weekend that was. And conversation naturally dies off. Right.
Really?
Yeah. And naturally, right? I mean, 800 miles away.
Yeah. I mean, and what year are you?
I'm a junior in college.
And you're pretty focused on football. Obviously, she's an athlete, focused on softball.
She's a pharmacist. She's a pharmacist that didn't finish undergrad because she had good enough grades in all the right categories that she could go to pharmacy school early.
I've never heard of that.
Wow. Yeah. Like she's just a brilliant, smart gal. And you wouldn't know it because she doesn't flaunt herself like that. She's just a hard worker, smart, intelligent, gets things done. She's a doer, and so anyway, just like our conversation just kind of like died off, and I continued to go through just like the turmoil of like relationships in college, and I was like, I was just so fed up, and I came from a small town, 5,000 people growing up, I think it's maybe up to 9,000 now. It's a small town, a little farm town. And so there was like this like ingrained nature of like you marry your high school sweetheart. And if you don't, it's like, you kind of missed the mark, man. And so like I had this this drive. Like I've always wanted to be married. Marriage is something that is very sacred to me. It matters deeply to me and always kind of has. And so it's like I just couldn't wait to find my person and go about life with my person. And so I was in church and just kind of sitting in the back and sitting there, like, just kind of praying, like, where am I going? Where's the direction? Like the turmoil of relationships kind of is starting to weigh on me, and just kind of like exploring that thought. And I don't know why I hadn't thought of her in probably 5 months, but Jenesy popped in my mind. I was like, I should, and just there, she just hung there. And so for about a week, I was like, I should reach out to her and just see how she's doing. So texted her. I went to visit a friend, drove to visit a friend. When I was coming back, I was getting sleepy and so just wanted somebody to talk to. And I had texted her earlier that day. And so I just gave her a call. It's like, hey, what are you up to? Like, I'm falling asleep at the wheel. You want to talk? And that was the start of like, hey, there could be something there. What really tipped it over was when after my junior year, I promised my roommate that I would come to Spokane and see Spokane. He had talked about it for 3 years, about how great Spokane is, the east side, blah, blah, blah. I lived on the west side of Washington. And it's like the east side of the state is like, you guys are just desert and there's nothing there. And like, dude, you can talk about this place, but there's nothing good over on the eastern side of the state. So just stop. And that was like truly like how I felt about Eastern Washington. And he was like, no, dude, just come meet my family and come hang out. So I came over for a weekend, and I was driving down Sunset Hill, up coming into town, looking down Spokane. I give him a call. I'm like, hey, I'm just rolling into town, probably 15 minutes from your house. He's like, awesome. Like, we're going to go do this tonight. And Jenesy is in town. We're like, do you want her to like come hang out too? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, dude, like, stop. Like, I am so tired of you and this. Like, I'm fed up with the relationship things and girls.
This is
like,
3 years.
This is 3 years. This guy like
Damn.
hung on to it. He's like, well, too bad. I already invited her. And so she was there. It's like, okay, cool. Like, she's fun. I had already been kind of like texting her with her, and it wasn't like in a relational type. It was just like, she's a nice person, good conversationalist, cares, that sort of thing. I was like, fine, cool, like, awesome. Just, quick synopsis, the whole weekend's like we had an awesome night. All of us just like hanging out, invited her to the next day. Like, you don't have anything going on this weekend? Do you want to come golfing with us tomorrow? We'll go cliff jumping. We went and got Hudson's Burgers in Coeur d'Alene. Like, we just did a bunch of stuff. By the end of the weekend, I was walking away. I was like, you can't just walk away from a girl like this. You would be foolish. You would just be foolish. And so, walking away from that weekend, I asked her, I was like, hey, like, do you want to have a relationship? I know that you're in Utah and you're going back there, but like, what do you think? And she was game, and she was, it was cool. Like, it was a very special week, and this is the fastest I've ever told the story. The longest I've ever told it.
I still like it though. I mean, yeah. I never knew any of this.
Yeah.
I only know you and Jenesy as an item. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Through and through.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know single Cole.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. But
wow. Yeah.
That's right. So then she's a heck of an athlete. She's a pharmacist.
Mm-hmm.
When did you guys decide to settle down into Spokane? Like, what year was that?
I think we always had an idea of that. She ended up coming to pharmacy school at UW. So she finished up school in Utah. I was finishing school here over in Seattle, and so she came up there to go through pharmacy school at UW. And while she was finishing pharmacy school, I had already graduated. I started working downtown.
You were a loan officer.
I was a loan officer. I sold
Holy
mortgages.
Crap, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was selling mortgages in downtown Seattle while she finished up pharmacy school. And it was like a pretty obvious, like, hey, like, I don't want to go back to my hometown. Like, there's not much opportunity there. I could kind of foresee like what life would probably be like at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to go somewhere that was a little bit more, opportunistic. There was more to do, small city vibe kind of thing. I just finished living in Seattle for 7-8 years. And so I'd gotten used to the city, but like, I don't like the city. Like, I don't want to be a city dweller. Spokane is a great option. She grew up here. And so it was just kind of a no-brainer. And I mean, not to mention, cost of living at the time was 52% cheaper in Spokane than it was in Seattle.
I miss those days.
It was amazing. It was it was incredible. So I was like, yeah, let's go back over there. And her parents are still here. So like, that also made sense. Right. So a lot of things that just were logically put in place there.
Hey guys, we interrupt this podcast to let you know about one of our partners, MagView Gear. This is also made in America and has a lifetime warranty. It is a simplified system to put a simple magnet on the back of your phone or phone case. And that is it. No special cases. The magnet attaches to the S1 or the B1. S is for spotter. B is for binoculars. You can digiscope with either options. You can get the entire thing as a kit. You can use all 3 lenses. It also has an app that you can download for free if you need help getting everything centered and switching from lens to lens. MagView Gear, proudly made in America. Again, lifetime warranty. Discount code ELKSHAPE takes 10% off. Hey guys, we interrupt this pod to tell you about one of our awesome partners, Marsupial Gear out of Arizona. Jim Graham's a good friend of mine. He's been making arguably the best chest pack on the market. It is what I run. So no, the magnets on the chest rig do not interfere with phones, compasses, things like that. But what they do is keep debris and brush out of your binoculars and out of your lens, your objectives, everything like that. Keeps it clean, it's quiet, it's seamless. You can also run the rangefinder pouch as well as other accessories for your handgun and tools. It's a great seamless system, and they have multiple offerings so that you can pick the right color or camo breakup to suit your hunt. Check them out. Head over to their website to learn more. Hey guys, we're going to interrupt this podcast to let you know that we are brought to you by Matthews Archery. These guys are located up there in Sparta, Wisconsin. I've had the great honor to visit their headquarters twice and have 2 different factory tours. This is a world-class facility. More importantly, world-class people. And we are honored to be partnered with Matthews since 2019. If you get a chance, head over to a local dealer. Try the latest and greatest. We just wanted to thank Matthews for helping us bring you awesome content. Back to the pod. Well, I want to get into... This is my own curiosity. Like, all right, Cole, so your first year competing and making it to the CrossFit Games is 2014. Mm-hmm. In 2014, did you have, like, you don't just get sponsored because you did make a declaration that I'm going to be a CrossFit Games athlete, but you certainly need to train like a professional athlete. Mm-hmm. What were you doing for work? Mm-hmm. Where was Jenesy in 2014? Was she done with farming school? Kind of want to get into that story. I kind of want to follow this path.
Yeah. That's actually, we were just talking about this with a friend recently. Like, if you talk about like the most like questionable financial time of our adult lives, was definitely that period of time.
I love those periods, man.
Yeah, man. It's like, and they shape you.
Your back's against the wall. Good stuff happens.
Yeah. And so if you want to talk about that, it's like, it was the same principle that I'd shared earlier about like which school do you choose? Do you choose to be a big fish in a small pond or a little fish in a big pond? And I was like, go be the little fish, grow into the space. Like, that's the thought. And so I decided that, hey, like I want to be a CrossFit athlete. I want to do it full time. In 2014, that was the year. There was a changing of the tide of the class of athletes. Like, there was a new upcoming rookie class. There's like 17 athletes and new athletes that year. The old regime was just kind of aging out, if you will, and miss the OGs. But it's like, so there was a change over there, but then there was a lot of space or attention on the space at that time. So yeah,
it's definitely got a trajectory right now. And 14 of attention, eyeballs, Reebok,
totally. And
legitimacy.
So sponsors are starting to enter this space.
Yep.
But they're not really sponsoring many athletes. It's like you had to have either won something, done really well, or been a promising athlete of the future kind of thing. So, I get a singular sponsor with Progenics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Actually, sorry. No, it was Tupood. It was Tupood belts. They were the first.
Are we talking Baker?
Yeah. Baker.
Is it Levitt?
Yeah.
Baker Levitt, what's up?
Yeah.
I still see Baker from time to time, man.
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he does some things with Black Rifle.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So it was Baker. And he just had a connection, some friends that I trained with up in Skagit Valley. He knew he was down in Marysville. And so like, there's just that crew would come together. CrossFit Marysville had gone to the games a handful of times, and Swabity was a individual athlete in 2013. So anyway, there's connections there. So that's how that landed. And then those connections led into a sponsorship with Progenics. And that was kind of the first one that really was like, hey, this is some money that could start to replace my income at work. And it was really this thought of like, hey, how fast can this dial turn? You know, can I pick up the sponsorships fast enough to turn down lending at the same time? And I essentially had a conversation with my partners that I was working with and said, like, this is kind of the opportunities I have in front of me. You guys are ex-college athletes. What would you do? Like, give me some wise counsel here. they're 12, 15 years older than me, like speaking to my life, like I'm 22 years old. What would you do? And they're like, you should at least step down to a part-time position here, kind of be like a assistant loan officer, if you will, and kind of manage our books, but not be out there like hunting the loans and whatnot. And so they graciously kind of created a position for me to be able to train from 5 to 11 each morning. And then I would go into the office. I had to be in the office by 11, but that time period, if I could maximize that time in the morning and train really hard and then go, there's a whole series of events, of connections that were made. The guy who was my manager throughout my career, recruited me, pursued me, and said, hey, like, let me manage you. I'm starting an agency. Let me be your manager.
I'm so jealous. Not that I'm a pro athlete, need a manager, but I've always dreamt of taking that part out of my equation so that I can focus on what it is that I need. So that is a huge.
It's huge.
Most people be like, "Oh, manager." I'm thinking that is a godsend. Man.
And we're talking about at the time, and so I was just I was a budding, promising athlete, right? I was promising talent, and that's most of the deals don't go to the people who have done. It's to the people who could do. At least it has been in our sport. It's a really interesting thing to see. It's like some of the best contracts come to like, you're 22 years old and you took 4th place. You're probably going to stand on the podium. We're going to invest money.
We're going to hedge our bets on you. Yep.
Precisely.
That's what they're doing. Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Makes sense to me.
And so I was one of those athletes. Just with that budding talent, my agent was like, let me manage things. Let me pursue this for you. Trust me, leave your job and let's grind. Let's do this. And I was like, at the same time, I had just met Ben Bergeron, spent some time with him. He was interested in coaching me. And all of these pieces were coming together. The only thing that hadn't come together was the actual finances in the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
So at that time, Jenesy and I said, let's just go for it. You can go back to loan originating if you want to, if you need to, but let's go for it.
Yeah, she's not wrong. That'll be waiting for you, bud.
Yeah, totally. It still is. It's still to the day. I could go do that.
Yep.
I still have all of the knowledge, all of it. So it's go take advantage of this opportunity. Go put your back against the wall and let's go fight and let's go make it happen. And, 6 months to 9 months, you're living on a couple grand a month and you live in Seattle and rent's really high and she's in pharmacy school and we told her parents that we're going to get married. So they're like, okay, great. We're not going to pay for her school anymore then if you're going to get married. So now you have So you have to pay for that. And we're like, absolutely. That's on us. We own that. And we're going to take that on because we would rather be married than you pay for her school. We'll figure out how to do that. Well, we also had the goal of her finishing school debt free. And so there was this we just put it all on our shoulders. Just let's go, let's do this. And definitely changes the way that you train.
Doesn't it?
Definitely changes the way that you train.
Your back is against the wall there. It's riding. So your first year is 14. How'd you do?
Took 17th in 14. And then
then the next year was
then 15 was the year that I went full time, if you will. It was the end of 15.
That was your first season of full time. Okay. And then in 16 you got 5th overall.
Yep.
And you had been dead last at the beginning of
dead last in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I did want to get into that because I think it's interesting building a platform and having sponsors. I think I had this conversation with somebody recently, but it does look really cool from the outside.
Totally.
Has your manager been able to set up your contracts to where training's number one and everyone understands that?
For the most part throughout my career, yeah. I was one of the fortunate few in the space that I had enough sponsor support that my main job during the day was to train and recover. And that's huge.
That's huge.
I mean, it's huge. there was a huge changing of the tide in 2019, 2020. And at that point, had you called me an influencer, I would have walked up right out of here.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm an athlete, not an influencer. And that was when there was a big shift of so many companies went to online promotion, paying athletes to be a public figure, paying random people to be an influencer. That kind of thought, like, that really started to take off a lot more. And there was a big transition in, like, hey, there's a lot more earning opportunity just to have a social presence than there was then companies valued an athlete. So it's like they started to value the influencer side of athletics more than the actual athlete itself per se. Can this person create content? Are they marketable? Do they have, good relationship connection with their following? Is their following engaged? How are their metrics? What kind of impressions and views do they get? All of these things, they started to put a lot more value into that rather than just like, are they standing on the podium or not? You could have stood on the podium, and it's actually kind of still that way. You can stand on the podium and not have an Instagram account and probably struggle to make some money in the space.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I love that, but I mean, obviously I love the results driven.
Yeah.
And especially knowing you, you're not a flip the phone around vloggy type of guy. You're rather just like your proof of your body of work is at the games. But
that's the preference.
You do have to. So I guess where would you go from here if we're here in 2025? You've competed 11 CrossFit games. And then you've had a remarkable last couple years where I don't know how you did it, Cole, but like you're a father and you're still training for the CrossFit games. I don't see how you balance the two. How did that work out? And how old are your kids now?
Yeah. 4 and a 1-year-old. So they're 3 and newborn. They have some tremendous birth stories. Both of them were born 3.5 months premature. So they spent 3 months in the NICU. As I was getting ready for the season, all of the everything. I mean, again, their stories are phenomenal. They're little fighters. We're blessed with 2 healthy boys we go down this route too much and you're going to have a guy in tears because of how fortunate I know we are in that our outcome with those boys could have been very, very, very different. And I got 2 healthy little boys that just are budding and beautiful and their personalities are coming out and it's awesome. Yeah. And really what this kind of ties all of this athletics and the pursuits and everything together back to the relationship side. And it was that Jenesy and I are a team, man. We do everything together. Like we pursue life together and we're on one accord and we make the decision, am I going to go again? Because if we are, we're doing this together. And it's not, I want to go again. We're going to do this together, Jenesy. It's, do you want to go again? I think I do. Yeah. Then I'm in. Let's do it.
Really?
That's Jenesy.
You need that.
She's like, I'm in. Let's go. I'll manage the DMs. I'll tell you, like, I'll help you with the Instagram posts and handle the tracking the contracts. And I mean, the number of workouts that she has timed, took in splits of, and analyzed with me is like, she played coach for so many years because she's like, we're in this together. In 2018, she stopped working as a pharmacist so that she could help the kind of the back end of my career at that point, which just created for opportunities for us to travel together and do things together. But we built our lives 100% around me competing at the CrossFit Games. If and I asked the question, is this going to help me win the games? No, it doesn't happen then. It's not part of the life right now. You got to say no to it. And at some point in time, those tides flip and those change, and you got to start saying yes to some other things, because if I'm saying yes to training, that means I'm saying no to other things. But that's the decision that we made together. Like, we have this for this period of time in our lives. We don't know exactly how long that was, but I mean, I had a beat on how long running backs lasted in the NFL at the long end. 32 seemed to be about the timeline, right? That a good running back could have a long career. So I was like, hey, like, we could probably do it at least that long. and so that's kind of how we pursued it. And now we've gotten to the other point where Jack's 4 years old and he's in preschool and his mind is budding, his consciousness is coming alive, and it's time to start saying no to training so I can say yes to some other things, I think.
I love it. I do. I love it. Personally,
Yeah.
I don't know. Pardon my transparency, which I think you've known me long enough. I'm pretty much just straightforward. So like, man,
and I appreciate it.
Nobody cares about CrossFit at this point. Like it's done. You've done what no one will probably be able to replicate.
Right.
You've built a massive following on whatever platforms, probably YouTube and Instagram.
Yep.
You still are going to be able to have contracts and educate and all that stuff, but like you will not have your kids at ages 1 and 4 ever again. This is it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, because everyone tells me this and I always roll my eyes, but like, oh, just wait, you blink and your daughter will be 18. And I'm like, yeah. Well, Cole, my daughter was 4 years old yesterday and she's now 10. And I'm like, what is going on, dude?
I can't believe it.
It is cool to like know that you have chosen
Thank you.
the right path, in my opinion.
There was something that was really interesting in this last calendar year. I ruptured my Achilles 6 months ago, roughly, or so.
How much longer after the games was that?
2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
Did that have anything to do with it, you think?
The games?
Yeah, just like
not what I
volume?
did, not what I did at the games, but post games, I would say yes. If we were to get down into the weeds of it, like when you look at human physiology, it was extremely stressful games, man. It's like everything that went down, so stressful, emotionally tolling. When we came home, the amount of just garbage that was thrown at us on social media, and just athletes were being attacked and accused, and there's just like so much negativity and toxicity that created for just a lot of negative emotion over the 2 weeks post games. But then you also add in I'm also catching up with family. I'm not eating the same. I'm not putting any emphasis on recovery. I just finished my season. It's like, that's the point when you start saying yes to all the things that you said no to for the last 3 months.
Well earned.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so you stay up later, you stay out on social engagements, and there's other stressors that take place. And I probably stressed the body a little bit too much, and it wasn't recovered. And I tried to throw it into a workout that I would never do. And I've never done a workout this intense post games before.
What were you thinking, Cole?
Honestly, I was in a rush. We needed to get Jack to an appointment. I was like, I want to get a workout in. And
Been there, done that.
So I just went and did a quick, intense workout. And the body, I wasn't respecting physiology.
Gotcha.
Just straight up.
Okay.
And so like I would point to that was probably the thing that did it, that weakened the body enough so that could even happen. Had I been in peak physical shape, I doubt that it would happen.
Yeah.
I could almost guarantee that it would have happened. Right.
I'd buy that.
So anyways, going back to what I was saying, 7 months ago now, ruptured the Achilles. Man, life slows down. Like I was forced to physically slow down 100%. At the same time, Jack had started preschool. And so it's like, I'm not moving around as much. I'm just noticing some things that because I was just always moving. I was always training. I was going and doing this and bouncing from this to that. It's like, there's just little things that you start to notice and you start to see. You're like, oh, wow, I need to pay attention to that more. Because I didn't know that he did that as often as he did or how he did it. Well, he goes into preschool and he comes home and his language just explodes and his consciousness comes alive. And the thing that you just said is how fast it goes.
Yep.
That's when it hit me. I was like, I just watched that. I watched it happen because I was
little
forced
window
to slow down. And I saw so much speed up. I was like, that's only going to get faster. And that's when I was like, oh, wow, I think I'm done competing. Not because I ruptured my Achilles, because I don't want to miss these moments anymore.
Yep.
I'm not going to let that just slip by.
No. God, I respect that. And I respect you a lot, Cole, but I respect you even more for this conversation, just kind of hearing the ins and outs, the whys I want to go back to your rupture to the Achilles because I'm coming off an injury, and we had a cool conversation before you came over.
You're moving way better than I expected you to be moving, by the way.
I like that. You keep that up.
Yes.
So when someone ruptures their Achilles, which is an injury I will knock on wood I never, ever, ever want. Did you like look back to see if somebody shot you when it happened? Like, did you know immediately?
I knew immediately. I knew it immediately. It happened. I was like, I was in the air and thought, did Jack just hit me, or did the barbell roll into my Achilles and did it pop it? And like, I knew instantly, landed on the box, and I fell back and gave out this like agony scream, not because I was in pain. It actually, when you rupture your Achilles, it doesn't really feel like anything. There's not a lot of nerve endings in the Achilles. It was just like agonizing, like yell of like, no, just no. Like because I just knew it. And why? Like, why? Gosh,
why now?
It. Yeah. I was like, and it took me 30 seconds to just shake that off. And I sat up, and Jenesy's across the garage gym looking at me like, just like deer in a headlight, like, okay, like, and I looked at her, I was like, this is actually it. Because we've had pops and we've had things and moments, and it's always just kind of like, this is like, cool. We're good. So there's been scares, right? Like, you just kind of freaked out. I just sat up and I was like, all right, we got to go to urgent care. Like, this is actually it, wrapped it up, and I pulled my foot up and just watch it flop. It's like, you just know,
How long until surgery?
Only 3 days.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was very fortunate. We reached out to Northwest Orthopedic right away, and he got me in on Monday at the end of the day, and he kind of asked about just like my lifestyle and athletic career. No, he didn't know I had an athletic career, but like, that was kind of alluded to, and we talked about that a little bit. And he was like, I'll get you in end of the day Wednesday. You'll be my last person. And he's kind of squeezed me in. And
thank you, sir.
Yeah, very thankful for him. Shahzad's been awesome.
That's cool.
Awesome. So
now here's where the story gets unique to me, because I'm like, yeah, man, I just started PT. I had to wait four freaking weeks. My ortho was like, nope, I know you. You're not doing PT for 4 weeks. I need 4 weeks of that leg not moving. And I was like, okay. And that's cool. I trust him. But bro, the atrophy. And I'm not a guy who has big quads, but I had quads compared to what I have now. And literally, I go twice a week to our mutual friend, Ben Mordell, and he literally spends an hour twice a week trying to get me to fire a quad.
Sure.
Specifically VMR.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's been humbling. But yeah, no, I'm way ahead of schedule. Very thankful. I think
heck yeah, sweet.
All the cross training throughout the years.
Totally.
Body knows what's up. But for you, you're a professional athlete. That was the conversation I was having with you. It's like, okay, Cole, you're a professional athlete. Who did you go to PT? Who'd you go with? Are you getting stem cells? Like, I'm geeking out with you, and you just started dropping knowledge. So let's not go too deep in the weeds, but let's give a Cliff Notes version of how you have rehabilitated this injury, which is impressive.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation, and essentially kind of went like, what are you doing? Like, how have you recovered? I think you asked me like, who are you seeing for PT?
What are you eating?
Yeah.
Inflammation, all that.
I think it started, I was like, well, I'm actually not seeing a PT. I talked to Wardell, just kind of one consultation, like, hey, does this kind of seem right to you? Just want to make sure that my plan is in place. I'm good. And he's like, yeah, that checks, all right. If I need anything else, I'll hit you up, man. Paid him for his time, and just kind of went to work. And, it was very much in what I told you was my whole career has been an athlete in a sport where it pays to be able to recover well. Though he who was most recovered at the next event performed the best. And by the end of the weekend, whoever is most recovered is going to perform the best. And so there's a ton of recovery protocols that you put in place and you live by. And I went on a hyperdrive version of that, man. Like, it's like we're just going to live on every recovery protocol that you can think of within the confines of, I wasn't pursuing, I'm going to take peptides, I'm going to do stem cells. Like what are the tried and true things? Like, it's like, do the base things really, really well. Like, those are the things that pay the biggest dividends, right? You know, like there's this philosophy out there, like, hey, like dial in all the 1% and whatnot. It's like, hey, cool. That's great. But it's not a good philosophy if you're not doing the 10%. You know what I mean? It's like, do the 10% really, really, really well. And then if you have margins, let's start dialing in some of those 1%ers. Right. And so it was like, let's honor circadian biology and human physiology, live and eat off of that and in those fashions. And the rest of it is going to take care of itself. You're going to have less inflammation. You're going to have the right cell signaling throughout the day, so that the tissues will heal in accordance to the work that you're doing and the stresses that you're putting on it. Keeping neurological engagement of the muscle tissue that was atrophying through, whatever means that I could do that with. Right. So it's like, I put all of those, and, whatever you want to dive into, we could, if you want, but like, it was like, honor human physiology and the principles that are in place, honor those things and do those really well. And, the body's going to take care of itself and it's going to heal.
Yeah. I can't really argue with that. It's a very holistic approach. For me, everything you said, cool, great. I like it. I'm going to lean into, first and foremost, what you put in your body to prevent inflammation, to almost, you can start with just your nutrition. Did you make any dietary changes, or did you turn up the volume on anything or dial in something? What did that look like?
Yeah. So not so much as is it's not so much about what I put in my body versus what I said no to going in my body.
Let's hear that. That's cool.
That first and foremost, right? Yeah. And it was actually really interesting because I ruptured in August, like the late end of August. So I'm only a couple months out from holidays. And the progress I saw in the first 2 months versus what I saw during the month of December was massively different, because you just,
you're human.
You let things off a little bit. Yeah. I'm not going to say no to a dessert. I'm going to hang out with the family. And also I ruptured my Achilles. What am I getting ready to compete for? You know what I mean? So it's but I definitely saw a little, not a backsliding by any means, but just, I didn't progress as quickly during that period of time.
Interesting.
The exact same way that throughout my athletic career, if I was to ever have one of the holiday seasons, if I was to let my hair down a little bit with all the hair I have, if I was to do that, I mean, I would see performance decrement or whatever, negative performance. My HRV would just plummet, and the paces that I could hold on the bike would be lower, like all of those same things. Well, I just saw that in physical recovery of the Achilles, right? Yeah. So start with eating. It's just stop putting junk into the body.
Okay.
Right. Just at least moderate that really well. There's you can have little bits and pieces, but moderate it really well. And then beyond that, then it goes into the, more of a holistic food, eat real foods, eat whole foods, eat clean meat, eat, grass-fed beef, free-range chicken, free-range eggs, those sorts of things. It's eat the things that aren't going to create inflammatory markers in the body more. Limit your sugar intake, your added sugar intake. I personally, I don't live on any, what do you want to call it, fad of I'm not a carnivore person. I'm not a keto. I don't none of those, I don't eat paleo. I eat just wholesome foods that fit in the right places at the right times. And this is what I was telling you, is when you eat based off of human physiology, or really what it's off of your circadian biology, there's a time and a place to eat higher fat meals and higher carb meals. There's a time and a place to have, there's a way in which you should eat protein throughout the day that optimizes cell signaling for repair. There's science around that. And if you listen to that and you eat off of that, you get the benefits of doing that. So, I would front load, meals with carbs when I was going to go work out. And then I would have low fat, high protein, high carb meals after I trained. And then I would eat high protein, high fat later in the day. I'm not going to go to bed all strung out on carbohydrates and create room for inflammatory markers while I'm sleeping, right? First thing in the morning, I cold plunge because it aligns with the natural cortisol spike of your circadian rhythm. So your cortisol is already spiked, spike it a little bit more, let that come down throughout the day so you don't have a cortisol spike late in the day, which just creates inflammatory markers. So those,
I love it.
Those sorts of things.
I'm
Like
tracking.
you can nerd out on all of these little facets. And it's like, dude, I was a student of the game. Like that was my thing. Like that was like, I didn't go for 12 years, 11 straight games because I just happened to be like, had this like God-given talent of like, it's like, dude, the field is getting really good.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's hard to keep up with. And if I want to do this, I need to understand every facet of human performance.
Mm-hmm.
And recovery is one of the biggest buckets of that. So understand how to do that and how to do that well.
Yeah. I mean, if you didn't know how to mitigate injury, you wouldn't have done 11 consecutive. I'm telling you right now, like, I just don't think that'll get beat. Like, that's insane. So I like what you're saying about the rhythms, but I want to tap into cold plunge in a second, but I want to go into what you'd mentioned leading up to sleep. What is your routine to get your body to shut down for, like, what has worked for you for the last 12 years that you probably still are implementing?
Totally. Yeah. So stop eating. I stopped eating, do my absolute best 2 hours before I go to sleep.
2 hours?
2 hours.
Dude,
yeah.
I'm hungry and
totally.
I don't have as much muscle as you.
Totally.
That's impressive.
I know, right? So I started to dabble with time-restricted feeding because there was some possible potential of testosterone boosting benefits of time-restricted like feeding. This is not intermittent fasting. Those are two different things. So intermittent fasting is actually a protocol, 16 off, 8 on, or whatever it is, time restricted is just like, hey, for 12 hours of the day, I'm not going to eat. For 12 hours of the day is a feeding window.
I probably fall into that versus the other.
Yeah.
Like I'd say from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., there's no food going in.
You're not really eating. Yeah. So shift that.
I got you.
Shift that a little bit.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's the same. I mean, for a lot of people, it's more of a psychological thing. And, it's just like shift that 6 to 6 or 6 to 7 and open up your window a little, your time restricted window a little bit more. But yeah, like 2 hour mark, and it was fascinating because when Avery, our 1-year-old, when he was in the NICU this last year, we would finish dinner and then we would go to the NICU. We'd have it'd be about 4 hours until we got back home, because we'd go visit him for a few hours and we'd go home and we'd go right to bed. Well, there was no eating allowed in the NICU. There's, and we were there till 11 p.m. Like I didn't need to eat. It's 11 o'clock at night. Like I don't need to eat. It was fascinating. Both Jenesy and I saw huge improvements in our HRV, huge improvements in our deep sleep. Our resting heart rates dropped, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And we looked at it like, wow, we need to do this better and more often. And so, I mean, that was when I really was like, I committed strongly 2 hours before bed. I'm going to stop eating.
I'm buying what you're selling.
Yeah, man. So
what about, so no screens at a certain time?
I dim the lights. We put light dimming switches in all of the lower part of the house for the most part.
Okay.
And so dim the lights and just have minimal amount of lights on to not stimulate the body, right? That's like this. Think about the sun. You know what I mean? If the sun is going down, the light should be dimming.
Yep.
It's that simple. Within reason. And that tends to follow the same feeding thing. If it's 2 hours, if I'm stop eating 2 hours before bed, that's when the lights start to dim as well. So when we're in deep winter and it's dark at 3, we don't dim the lights at that point, you know? So it's like about that 2 hour mark, because I start to dim the lights, do a little bit of screen within reason, I work a fair amount in the evening, like when the kids have kind of started to settle and, or families eating dinner, like, just finished eating dinner and everybody's kind of occupied for a little bit, like I'll sneak away and do a little bit of computer work at that time, catch up on emails, because most people I work with on the East Coast, and it's just kind of a good time for me to do that. So that doesn't seem to disrupt. It's the strong overhead lights that really are the problem, that stimulate you more than anything. So, and I dim my screen and I do all the orange screen stuff on the phone, right? On the phone, on the computer, I do all that too. So, the other thing is I will have my second meal before bed tends to be carb heavy, but I'm also tend to be finishing training at that point in time. So I'm replenishing, but also that carb heavy meal helps create serotonin, which is something that will help you start to feel sleepy. So serotonin is a precursor to melatonin. So it supports melatonin production. Yep. And then the final meal of the day tends to be protein, fat heavy. And that's so I don't have a bunch of glucose running through my veins while I'm sleeping.
Amen.
Because that's stimulating. You don't want that. You want the brain to be able to just like shut down and get into deep REM sleep and whatnot. So those are kind of some of the main principles that I live around going into
the whole glucagon, gluconeogenesis, like the swing of sugars in the bloodstream, getting sugars out, I think you nailed it. I can't argue with the thing you just said. I guess the final protocol, the ice bath. So like back when I first met you and when I owned CrossFit Spokane Valley, dude, we had a horse trough and we had 2 of them. And I've taken so many ice baths in my life, but none compares to the one I did at my buddy's house in Oregon, where I got in and it was 34 degrees and the water was moving. And I literally was arrogant. I was like, I'll get in there. Yeah. And I remember I was like, and I could not get a thermal barrier. And I was like, how much longer? And still traumatic. Still traumatic. So I guess I finally learned that there's a difference in ice bathing protocols. What do you have at your house?
Yeah. So we have a Redwood Outdoors kind of like cylinder barrel plunge, so you it looks like a giant whiskey barrel.
I gotcha. Yeah. They're out of Seattle, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Kent area.
Okay.
So that's what we have. We have the chiller. I set the chiller to 40 degrees.
Yeah. Sounds miserable.
Well, I set it to 39 and that will get it to 40. But this winter we have not had to. This is the first winter we've had it. And we haven't had to hook up the chiller, and we also don't have the chiller hooked up because it's like the hoses are going to freeze and whatnot. So
no doubt.
But the nice thing about the chiller is that it can also actually, the one that we have can actually heat it. So if it's below temperature, it can bring it up to 40 degrees.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. But we just forewin it. We have it stored away. We'll bring it back out in the warmer months. But what you're talking about with the 34 degrees plunge, we had it out throughout the whole winter, and it's actually it's really insulated really well. They did a really good job, to the point where like it was 0 degrees out and it didn't freeze over. But by golly, that thing got down to 32 degrees. It got down to 30 degrees one day, and like it's a different level of pain when you plunge in that thing, like pins and needles and stings. And
how long do you go? What's your protocol?
Yeah. So depending on the temperature, I'm just looking for the shiver effect. That's my main pursuit. I want brown fat thermogenesis, brown fat adaptations, for all of the metabolic benefits of it, for the aerobic benefits of it, the ability to oxidize fat, which is essentially just use your body's fat, internal fat, as fuel to produce energy. So you don't have to always consume that. So that's the main thing that I'm searching for. And you can get the shiver effect at 32 degrees. You can get that in a minute to 45 seconds. You know what I mean? You don't have to be in there very long. But I have a philosophy also. So then the other reason why I cold plunge is for the top-down neurological control of the body. I want to be in control of the body. I want to, when I'm in the pain cave of a workout, to override the urge to slow down and say, no, I got to go a little bit longer. I'm uncomfortable most of the time. discomfort is because you don't have good CO2 tolerance. Well, I want to say I can tolerate the lack of CO2 because I know I'm not going to pass out at this point. I'm just uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I want the top-down control and benefit of my body. And so getting into cold is one of the best ways to do that, to have mental resilience, to formulate willpower, all of those things.
Formulate willpower. I love that.
Yeah, man.
We got to trademark that.
Yeah, I did.
That's good.
Thank you. It's formulate willpower, man.
I'm all
real.
about that. Okay, that's cool.
It's real.
I love that.
So my
is that
philosophy,
every day, dude, that you're doing this?
every single day,
Cool.
every single morning, unless I'm going for a run that morning, an early morning run, and then I'll do it right after my run, or if I have to get into a meeting, like I just miss it. But like I will cold shower before a run because you don't get the shiver effect, so you don't have a core temperature drop. That's the thing that I don't want before a run is I don't want to drop my core temperature and then try to go ask the body to run and all of the tendons and everything are stiff. Like that's just you're asking for injury.
Yeah.
So it's get in there, move around. Hands and feet have to be in, and you have to swish the body around. That's control it, man.
Yeah.
Like you're in a controlled environment.
Lean in, folks.
Yes, man. It's like, make it as miserable as possible.
I love that.
So that when you get out the things that are miserable and your kid is in the NICU fighting for their life, you can control yourself in that time, in that moment.
Yeah. Which somebody's got to be the rock.
Mm-hmm.
You know, women are tougher than men, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, you got to be the rock, man.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Jenesy cold plunges every single morning too.
I don't doubt it, dude. I don't know her very well, but I've just ran into her a few times throughout. I wouldn't mess with her.
No,
it's kind of like my wife. My wife's kind of intimidating for a woman, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's just kind of like, who are these gals? All right, I got two last things. I'll get you out of here.
Man.
So I want to talk about your career change. I want to talk about CompTrain. But before that, I want to talk about wearables. You've mentioned HRV, resting heart rate. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at a watch right there. You're very numerically driven. Mm-hmm. You're extremely, you make observations, I would say. Like which is cool. It separates you. So what do you recommend? What do you stand behind?
Yeah. So I wear a Garmin.
Which one's that?
Yeah, this would be the Epix Phoenix 8.
Okay.
Yeah, so
this is an
8.
Epix.
Okay, yeah. So I had the Epix before that, but this is the Phoenix 8. So this is the most recent. I was a Garmin athlete for the last couple years, but I have been I was a Garmin user for 8 years prior to becoming a sponsored athlete. I had a small stint where.
Let's get that sponsorship back, dog. I like Garmin.
Bro, that's what I'm saying.
Come on, Garmin.
Yeah, they're just doing other things and going into other directions, and obviously the sport is shifting. And I mean, there's a whole series of,
I have tried so hard today to avoid that topic of talking about HQ. Like, that's not. I don't feel like I have a lot of nice things to say.
What they do massively impacts my livelihood.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
So back to your wearable. Garmin is legit, and I don't work with them either. Straight up. Yep. But I love their app.
It's great.
Do you do the morning report every day off this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the morning report. It goes for first is the one that I have. The way that I have it set up is I want sleep, I want HRV, and then HRV sleep. It gives me a training readiness.
Yeah. What does that look like for you? Typically, does it lie to you? Because like my wife's Polar that she wears, she was like, "Oh, it says I didn't sleep good again," and she said that so many times. And no one's as good at sleeping as my wife. Dude, she needs 8 hours minimum.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have kids, I bet she'd do 10. I'm not kidding.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
That's not me.
Amazing. That's amazing.
I'm like 7.5 to 8 would be on a weekend, but during the week it's 7 to 7.5.
Totally.
But her report, I don't believe. Do you believe your report on the Polar? She's just not convinced the Polar's giving her accurate sleep accounts. Sure. Do you feel like yours is?
I think that my sleep is like my sleep data. I think it's pretty good.
Okay.
I also have an 8 sleep. So, again, dial in we didn't even get to like sleep hygiene. Like there's a whole, dude, like I do a whole
What?
half a podcast on sleep hygiene, temperatures of my bedroom, the temperature that I sleep at, and how I have my mattress, because the 8 Sleep can adjust your temperature as you're sleeping, the temperature of the mattress as you're sleeping. So have it drop so that you go into better deep sleep, have it rise so you activate REM sleep more, because your body does that at different temperatures. And then I have a thermal wake up so that it heats my body up, because the rise in core temperature is actually the thing that wakes you up. And that's that cortisol spike that I was talking about.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, totally. So there's a whole like sleep structure is a fascinating thing. And so I will compare those two things when I feel like something is off.
Yep.
More often than not, I feel like the Garmin has been the most accurate. Like when I go look at the 8 Sleep, it's like, okay, that's useful information, but I actually question a little bit more, but the Garmin I trust a little bit more. It's also been the thing that I've worn for 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And the HRV, it's good. Every device is only as good as the device is, and is as long as they're all inaccurate, but as long as they're consistently inaccurate.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
They're good, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now just follow the trend, don't take it letter to the T, because how 8 Sleep tracks my HRV and measures our HRV is actually different than how my Garmin does. They use 2 different equations, and it's different than what Whoop. Then I tried Whoop once upon a time. It's like they come up with like an arbitrary number, but it's like their thing, and as long as it's in consistently inaccurate, it's like, hey, it does its thing. Like it gives you a picture. I like Garmin's the most because it's an average, and I like averages. They show a better picture. But when it comes to training readiness, I never have a good training readiness score.
I didn't see that happening. Yeah.
I just train more than what their database and demographic markers were based off of. And so of course it's going to say like you trained way more than you should have today. Well, it's like, okay, yeah, but you can't understand my physiology and what I've adapted to over the last decade. Right. So I take it for what it's worth, and I look at the measures that I know to use and how I know to use them, and that's how I kind of like, okay, thanks for telling me that. Take it into consideration based off of how I feel and the other things that it's given me.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which is what Alicia should do, right? It's like,
yeah,
if it's saying that she's had a terrible night's sleep, but she feels amazing.
Yep.
Well, then it's probably not as right as And
that's what I was telling her. Because ain't nobody good as her sleeping. Yeah. She's just like it's incredible. She is a light sleeper though. For what like stuff will wake her up that doesn't wake me up.
Okay, does she sleep hot?
She doesn't.
No.
She doesn't, as far as I know. I need to grill her a little bit more on that. But like,
does her Polar give her temperature throughout the night?
I wonder if it does. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, because like your Garmin would, right? So you can actually look and see your temperature.
Yeah.
And there should be a temperature minimum 2 hours before you wake up. So you should see this drop in your temperature 2 hours before the time that you wake up. And if she doesn't have that, that means that she's probably sleeping too hot. And if you're sleeping too hot, you have more light sleep. So you're not getting into the deep sleep phases and the REM sleep phases when your brain waves change. And if that's happening, then you're easy to wake up.
What's your coldest setting that you'll hit at night with your thermal?
On the 8 Sleep?
Yeah.
I'll go down to like a -8, -7, -8. I don't know what that would be in degree.
Right.
They don't do it that way.
But their measurement system.
So from -10 to +10.
You'll be down to almost a 10.
I'll go down to a -8 during deep sleep.
Yep.
Yeah. During deep sleep. And then fall asleep, first wave is deep sleep. That's kind of the first phasic of the sleep structure. And then the back half of the night kind of starts to prioritize REM sleep. And that's when the temperature rises. And I have my bed go from a -7 to a -2. So it lets my body rise in temperature. And then when I want to wake up, I have it pop all the way up to a +7. So I wake up extremely hot, pops me awake. I'm really refreshed.
That's awesome, dude.
Feeling really good. Yeah, it's the coolest thing.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
It is funny that I remember a couple nights ago, oh gosh, I fell asleep. I fall asleep so fast. Like my wife has even said like, good night. And then I go to bed and I'm asleep. Like
amazing.
I
It's
told her,
gotta be a guy thing. I'm the same way.
are you?
Yeah.
I told
it's
her
amazing.
it's just good, healthy, clean living with nothing on my,
Right? Yeah.
I say that jokingly, but yeah, for real.
Totally.
But my dog woke me up, and we have 2 dogs, but I have one dog that just would never wake you up, and she's like inches from my face, whining, and I woke up, and she needed to be let out, which never happens. She's an older dog and doesn't, and I'm just like, whoa. I let her out, and I come back and look at the clock, dude. I'd only been asleep for an hour and a half, and that was definitely deep sleep because I was like, wake up, didn't even know who I was or where I am. So that deep sleep does happen real quick.
Yeah, it does happen right at the beginning.
That's interesting. CompTrain. Followed it back in the day when I thought I wanted to be a professional exerciser.
Yeah, man.
Followed it even when I wasn't being a professional exerciser. Loved it. Ben Bergeron, I've met him because of Hugh once, maybe twice. I can't remember. Had a lot of respect for him in the space. One of the most articulate,
Totally.
Absolutely. High IQ guy. Let's just say that. High IQ guy.
Totally.
Look him up. That's your coach. And then now, I don't know. Are you taking over?
I mean, we're business partners now.
Let's hear about it.
Yeah. We're just I stepped. It's a very natural evolution that kind of occurred, right? It's like he had a programming company for elite level CrossFitters, and that was the focus of their sport. Well, at one point in time, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, Ben and I stopped working so much on a coach athlete front as much as like we just were working together as friends. It's like we built a bond, a relationship. We'd been working for 7-8 years together. We respected each other, core values of each other's like as a human being. And, we're 3,000 miles apart. He's in Boston. I'm in Spokane, Washington. And it was kind of this like, hey, like I'm going to take charge of my training, and I have ways that I like a really specific ways that I want things done. You're trying to grow a business. You're trying to do your thing over there. And I have the time and attention that I want to put to this, and you don't have that capacity. Let's work more like on a consulting basis. Where like I'm gonna handle this, and like let's just do some check-ins and just like tell me if I'm off course, kind of course correct. Help me do that. So that was kind of the back in my career, and through that process and relationship, it was just kind of like, well, what do we want to do next? Like he wanted to be done coaching athletes. He wanted to focus on his business. He asked me like, well, when are you going to be done competing? And do you want to take over the head coaching role for CompTrain? Well, at that same time, he in particular, he saw a need to get away from the only elite program for elite CrossFit. And just his interests changed too.
Been at it for a while.
Yeah, totally. 15 years, And so it was kind of like, cool. Like, what's the next thing that we can do together? And I came on, started working with him at CompTrain. And we just had, in that process, had a deeper conversation of like, well, what do you really want to do with CompTrain? And then he's like, well, what do you really want to do on the other side of being an athlete? And things just kind of married. They lined up well, where it's like, hey, like I have been an athlete for the sole purpose to grow, to gain knowledge, to gain insight and understand life's principles, grow as a human being so that I can step into other arenas. CrossFit has never been the thing for me. It was only a means to another avenue in order to serve, help, give, grow, go down another venture. Like that was its intent. So it's like, okay, well, I've built the platform, I've gained the knowledge. Now, how can we start to use that and deliver that? Right. And so like those just started to kind of marry together, and he had more of an interest in the wider market of like people who are just interested in functional fitness, but like they don't want to do CrossFit. They don't want to compete in CrossFit. How can we deliver well-rounded fitness to them? Yeah. And, and acknowledging like most of the CompTrain users have aged up with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, So
that would be me.
Yeah.
A guy who I relied upon it in 20 whatever, probably 2014 to 2016.
I was gonna say probably the prime of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's like, let's do this together. And so we've actually rebranded CompTrain, which used to be known as Competitors Training, and we've rebranded it as Complete Training. And
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's and in that we've written a completely different philosophy for CompTrain of like how we view fitness, how we think that fitness should be developed, intended to. And really it comes back to all of the principles that I started to use as an athlete in the gym that gave me the longevity when over the last 4 years, when my kids were in the NICU and I still needed to train, I still needed to get things done. I'm aging, I'm getting older. What are the principles? Respect those, and you're going to have a healthy lifestyle. You're going to have good fitness. You're going to have all that. So it's like, how can we deliver that to people? Which is really just finding a balance across, you know, strength, conditioning, and range of motion. You have those things and you're going to be a pretty durable, resilient human being, you know? And so that's been really fun. And so I've stepped into the, you know, the role as president of CompTrain, is I guess the official title.
Dang, cool.
Yeah. So, it's fun. It's going to be a fun journey to go down, and just, you know, bring everything that I've learned as an athlete to a wider demographic of people and see that, you know, see them benefit because of it. You know, the number of times that I see athletes just like run themselves into the ground and overtrain and just overload themselves in such a way. It's like, you didn't need to do that. You should have just done the minimum necessary requirements, peak a little bit leading into a competition. You would have been much healthier. You would have had better blood biomarkers. You would have slept better, been a better person to be around, had better hormone balance, all of these things, right? Respect physiology, man.
Respect it. Well, dang, Cole, thanks for giving up so much of your time. I've been looking forward to this. I'm thinking like about you is I feel like I can just pick up where I left off. I don't know if I had talked to you in years, but I don't feel like you've ever changed. I feel like you're the same guy I freaking met 10 years ago. That's a very big compliment because people change.
Totally.
But you're still just a genuine guy.
Thank you.
Who loves the Lord, loves his family,
Amen.
And is a fierce competitor. Yeah. And I love that. I think that what I learned the most about you today was how much of a student you are of the game. You know what I mean? And I cannot say I've met that many athletes that could probably say the same. Like, so if you guys are like, maybe Austin Hatfield will be listening to this pod. Austin, do you have Cole's number? Yeah. Hit me up. I'm going to give him your number.
Absolutely.
Dig in, because there's levels to this, and I feel like you're mind blown. To be quite honest,
Thank you.
Where will people go to learn more about complete training?
Yeah. CompTrain.com. So that's complete training. It's word mash. CompTrain.com. That's where complete training is, or on Instagram. You can go to CompTrain.
At
Instagram.
Cole Sager 35. Is that still the?
Yeah. 35. That was my number growing up. That was the football number. So at Cole Sager 35 on Instagram. I got a YouTube channel, with resources on there. I'm not super active on it right now currently, but there's still resources, ways to eat, meals to make, things like that. You can learn a little bit more about me at colesager.com. I just have some tidbits about myself on there, but just doing what we can to help people make the world a little bit better.
Cool. Cole Sager, cheers in the next chapter.
Yeah.
Separation is in the preparation. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yeah.